Today, I want to talk to you about more than 20 different resources that can help you pay your rent or mortgage when you're having a hard time. I feel like not very many people know that these resources exist. And honestly, that's really sad because housing is so expensive. And I know everyone could use a little extra support. In fact, the National Low Income Housing Coalition just released their annual Out of Reach report. And if you've never heard of that before, this is a thing they do every year when they're analyzing the high cost of housing and exactly how much it costs to be able to afford a modest home in America these days. They found that the housing wage is over $33 for a modest two-bedroom apartment. That means your average full-time worker is going to have to earn more than $33 an hour to be able to afford that housing on their own, which is honestly kind of crazy. They found that nearly half of all US renters are cost burdened. And of course, over 87% of low income renters are cost burdened, which means you're paying more than 30% of your income toward your housing, which is a really big deal. But I know I'm preaching to the choir on that. That's why you're here at Low Income Relief. So let's get into those details on the organizations that can help you when you're going through a hard time. So the first one I want to tell you about is free housing counseling services. Housing counselors are located throughout the country, and they can help you get advice not just on buying a home, but also on renting, forbearances, foreclosures, credit issues. They're supposed to help you with all things housing. There is no charge to work with a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. That help is free to you, and you can use the resources that you see on screen right now to reach out to those organizations and get that support. I wanted to talk about this resource first because I know it's often referred to in articles about how to get help paying your rent. They don't necessarily pay your rent for you, but they may be able to help you connect with other resources that can. Now let's dive into even more organizations that can actually put money toward your rent. So the first one I want to go over with you is my personal favorite, and that is Gradient Gives Back Foundation. If you've seen our other videos on grants, you may have heard of this group before, but they can provide up to 12 months of mortgage and rent assistance to families who are experiencing unexpected financial hardships through no fault of their own. So to be able to get help from these guys, you need to show that you were able to afford your housing on your own, and then something happened that made that impossible for you. Families can apply or be nominated at any time of the year. You must live in the United States. You must live near an active partner location, but they do not release the list on where those are because they change so frequently. So you will need to just apply and see if you qualify based on that. That being said, there are no specific income guidelines, so this is a good opportunity for anyone who's going through a hard time. If you are approved, you'll be notified about 6 to 8 weeks after applying, and you can apply for that online at the website that you see on screen there. That is a hard one to get. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of competition for that as a resource, and they're not going to be able to afford to help everyone who applies. So just know that going into it, that it's not a guaranteed deal. There are other resources that you can turn to, and we're going to continue going through those as we move throughout this video. So the next one I want to highlight for you is Family Promise. They are located in many areas across the country. This is the nation's foremost organization addressing the crisis of family homelessness, according to their homepage. They provide a wide range of services that go way beyond simply paying your rent. They can pay your rent. They can pay your past due rent. They can help with your security deposits. They can help you with utilities. They can mediate disputes with your landlord, help you find housing, assist with transportation costs, and even help with hotel or motel vouchers if you need them. You can find a Family Promise near you by visiting that link at familypromise.org. And of course, if you're currently working, Modest Needs is a great resource as well. This organization provides grants to working people who live just above the poverty line. They like to focus on people who typically don't qualify for other types of assistance. So single people without kids, teachers, first responders, people like that. You do need to have a documented extenuating circumstance. Now, this could be something like an illness or a death in your family, a car repair, something that made you suddenly unable to cover that cost on your own. The average grant from Modest Needs is between $750 and $1,250, and you can apply for help on their website. Just make sure you read those rules really carefully because they do have a lot of things that you have to do in a very particular order in order to be able to get that assistance. Now, of course, one that we like to talk about a lot on this channel is Section 8 housing. Those are your housing choice vouchers. Section 8 is one of the most recognizable housing assistance programs in this country, But if you've seen our recent videos, you know that reforms are currently being discussed that would limit how much assistance you can get, how this program works, and so on. You probably also know that housing wait lists are quite long, so this isn't necessarily a source of urgent relief. Usually, those who participate in Section 8 are expected to pay about 30% of their adjusted monthly income toward the rent. Long wait lists are common. If you would like to explore your eligibility for Section 8, you can reach out to your local public housing authority or PHA for details on how to move forward with that application. Now, another great resource if you need urgent help paying your rent is town and county welfare assistance. And I've been running low income relief for a long time, like 12 years now. And it astounds me how many people don't know that this exists. So if you've heard me talk about it before, please forgive me. There are so many people out there who qualify for this help and just don't know that it's there. So many states, including New Hampshire, require towns or cities to offer welfare assistance to low income people who need help. Some states do this at a county level, some states do it at a town or a city level. It just depends. You need to call your city hall or your county government and ask about things like general welfare, town welfare, or eviction prevention services to find the right department. I thought this was interesting. I'm highlighting New Hampshire here because I had it written down in my notes already. This is from 603 Legal Aid, and they said even if the welfare officer disagrees with how you have spent your money, you should be able to get help now with instructions on how to change your situation. For example, you may be asked to apply for public or subsidized housing if your rent is high, but you absolutely should reach out and ask for that help right away if you think that you qualify for this. Here's an example from Pierce County, Washington, just so you know, because I know New Hampshire is on one side of the country. So let's talk about what's going on in Pierce County. For their eviction prevention program, you must be behind on less than 3 months of rent. You must have an income that is under 80% of the AMI, and the lease must be in your name. There's some other requirements too, but those are the big ones. Now, when you go and you look for this kind of assistance, or honestly, any kind of assistance paying your rent, I want you to pay attention to which poverty level measure they're using. When it comes to housing, a lot of these programs will use the AMI or the area median income. That is huge because the income limits of the AMI are way higher than the income limits for the federal poverty level. As you can see on this chart here, the AMI income limits in this area are almost $100,000 a year for a family of four. This is way more generous than it would be if they were using the FPL as a poverty measure. If you're interested in the differences between those, you should go check out the video on our other channel, Fast Facts by Low Income Relief, where we break down those differences. But for now, I wanted to highlight this so that you could see that the income limits for help with rent are usually very generous and a lot more people qualify than you might expect. So with that in mind, let's move on to some other resources. Coordinated entry programs are amazing. This is something that's been rolling out in a lot of different communities, especially big cities around the country. It's especially common in areas where there are multiple organizations that serve people who are homeless or at risk of homeless or who offer eviction prevention services. Basically, coordinated entry means that you call one phone number, you go into one office, you fill out one application, and all of a sudden you are applying for all of the different resources in your area. They're going to help you figure out which one would be best for your situation. And it saves you a lot of time from having to chase down a lot of different resources. And it also saves those organizations time by having one streamlined pipeline for people who need this kind of help. So priority in coordinated entry is given based on urgency and vulnerability, not necessarily on a first come, first served basis. To get started, you can call 211 or contact your local continuum of care for the coordinated entry point in your area. Now, if you saw our recent video about the changes that are being made to low-income housing, you may recall that I said that there is an act being considered that would basically erase the continuum of care programs. If and when that does eventually happen, we will certainly make another video addressing that. So make sure that you're subscribed to our channel for future updates as well. Now we're going to dive into some other resources that may be able to help you pay your rent. We have done a lot of videos in the past about different grants for people with chronic conditions or certain medical diagnoses. There are all sorts of organizations out there that can financially support you if you have a condition that lines up with their overall mission. For example, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society can offer up to $500 per year in assistance with rent, mortgage payments, utilities, or other essential expenses if you have leukemia or lymphoma, right? There are also all sorts of cancer charities out there. The ones I listed here are specific to breast cancer. Some of them can pay up to $3,000 toward your basic needs over a period of several months. If you are affected by any form of cancer, please let me know, and I can make a separate video, probably on our secondary channel, going into more detail about all of the grant programs that are out there, because there are a ton. But I know that those of you who don't have cancer probably don't want to sit through a really long list right here in the middle of this rent relief video. So let me know if that's something that you'd like to see me create in the future. The American Brain Tumor Association has many different types of funds available to help patients with brain tumors. Many of them do help with rent and mortgage costs. I would encourage you to go to their website and look at that full list. There are other organizations out there as well that help with other specific medical needs. For more information on those, I would recommend that you check out our website for the full list, or just let me know what condition you'd like to see me cover in another video, and I'll dive in and see what grants I can find for you there. Now, there are also organizations that may be able to help you with your rent based on your current or former employment. There's a lot of different professional-based organizations out there that cater to people who have worked in certain fields. For example, the Entertainment Community Fund has 12 different assistance programs for people who have worked in various entertainment careers. You can see the website for that on screen. Children of restaurant employees, also known as CORE, can help pay your rent or mortgage if you work in food service. And there's a lot of different things that they consider food service. It's not just working in a restaurant. I believe people who work in food trucks, who work in food service in hotels, things like that, also qualify for this if you have a dependent child in your home. Now, you also have to have experienced a medical crisis, injury, natural disaster, or death in your family to qualify. But if that sounds like something that you might be eligible for, make sure you go to coregives.org and check that out. Now, if you work in another field or office, I would recommend that you talk to your HR department. I've been really surprised to see how many employers offer emergency financial assistance or loans to employees who are going through a hard time. So you would need to contact your HR department for details on what they offer. But if you're having a hard time and you're facing a crisis, I would absolutely recommend taking that step. And of course, St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund may be able to help you if you work as an over-the-road semi-truck driver and you have a medical condition. Pine Top Assistant League for Elder Musicians may be able to help with basic living expenses if you're over age 50 and performed as a professional elderly blues artist. They can only help you with about $500 though, and that website is there on screen. I do apologize for those typos. And of course, if you are currently in the military or if you have served in the military previously, there are all sorts of military and veteran organizations as well. The American Legion TFA grants can provide up to $1,500 toward the cost of your shelter, food, utilities, and health expenses. The Army Emergency Relief Fund can provide zero interest loans and grants to those who need assistance with rent or emergency expenses. And for veterans, the VA Supportive Services for Veterans Families program can provide financial help with rent, utilities, security deposits, and more for low-income veterans who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And usually being unable to pay your rent will make you susceptible to a 3-day pay or vacate, which means that you are in fact at risk of homelessness. In case you're not sure if you qualify for that, being unable to pay your rent is usually enough to qualify you for a at risk of homelessness program. Now, there are other charities that may provide partial support. This varies depending on your location, right? Because Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, St. Vincent de Paul, all of these are big, well-known nationwide charities, but they are run at the local level by different chapters or branches, and sometimes the services can vary. Oftentimes, there's also a cap on how much relief they can provide. Most St. Vincent de Paul chapters can't provide more than like $300, sometimes $150 in assistance. So even if they're willing to pay that toward your rent, it's probably not going to cover the full amount that you owe. So do just be aware of that. Oh, and I forgot to mention, if you have a child in school, you can also talk to your child's school's McKinney-Vento Act coordinator. The McKinney-Vento Act is the one that kind of governs how schools are supposed to handle homeless students and those who are at risk of homelessness. So like I said, if you can't pay your rent, that usually means you're at risk of homelessness. It makes you eligible for some of those other supportive services. So if you contact your school's MVA coordinator, they may be able to help you connect with additional resources that may be able to help you pay your rent. If you're in college, a lot of universities or colleges have emergency funds for students who are having a hard time meeting basic expenses. And of course, local churches and other organizations often have different sorts of funding available to help those in need as well. Now, we are not entirely out of ideas yet. We're just kind of getting more into the weeds of the ones that are a little bit harder to use. But I have all sorts of options out there for people who are having a hard time. So please stick around. Just two that I want to highlight really quick for homeowners, right? So far, everything we've talked about can mostly apply to mortgage or rent payments. In fact, historically, you can even buy a house with Section 8, but that's a whole different conversation. This page is specifically for mortgages, though. So property tax exemptions are huge. If you're a senior, a disabled veteran, anything like that, I would recommend that you contact your county assessor's office and ask about property tax exemptions because they can help you save a substantial amount of money on your monthly mortgage. Another thing, I know this is very niche and this probably won't apply to a lot of people. In fact, I hope it doesn't apply to you because it's heartbreaking. But Tunnels to Towers has a fallen first responder program that pays off mortgages for the families of law enforcement officers and firefighters who lose their lives in the line of duty. In fact, they made the news recently for responding to the incident in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So that fund is still very active, and we really appreciate the work that they do there at Tunnels to Towers. This one is specific to rent, but Isuzu rent relief loans are available, and they can help cover up to 3 months of past due rent at 0% interest. It is a loan, though, so whatever funding you receive from them will eventually have to be repaid. To be eligible, you must owe less than $5,000 in rent. You cannot be behind by more than 3 months. You cannot be in the eviction process right now. Your landlord must work with them. And they did say it is available regardless of your immigration status. This money is given directly to your landlord, and then there are terms under which you have to repay that money back to Isuzu. But if you're interested, you can get started at the link that you see on screen. Now, there are some other options for relief out there. These are a little bit more fringe. They're not as reliable, but I want to make sure that I'm bringing every avenue to you so that you have as many opportunities for help as possible. So if you're still having a hard time covering your rent, I would recommend reaching out to your community action agency. If you're over age 60 or you have a disability, reach out to the area agency on aging. When you reach out to these guys, don't just ask them, hey, can you pay my rent, right? You're going to want to say, do you have any programs that help with rent relief? And if they say yes, then ask them for details. And if they say no, then ask them, do you know anyone in our area that does? Right? You always want to ask them what they know because a lot of these agencies are very well connected to your local area and they may know of resources that I haven't found yet. So always ask that question as a follow-up. Your local public housing authority is going to be the one who runs a lot of the low-income housing in your area. They're a great resource for connecting with different housing-related relief programs. Local homeless shelters may be able to assist you as well, or at least put you in contact with those who can. One of the things you may have noticed when we were discussing coordinated entry earlier is the first step is always prevention. Right? They want to stop people from becoming homeless because it's easier to help you stay housed than it is to get you out of homelessness. So they may be able to help you or refer you to a program that focuses on homelessness prevention. So that's something you can reach out to. And then the United Way via 211 is always great because they do their best to keep an updated list of resources in your area. Sometimes in different areas, the list isn't as good, but it's always worth a call if you're struggling to find resources. Credit counseling agencies, like we talked about in our recent debt relief video, may be able to help you lower the cost of your other bills, especially if you have a lot of debt, which can free up more money for your rent. It's a very roundabout solution, but it might be worth trying. We'll put a number here on screen for the credit counseling agencies that we work with through our sponsor, Care Connect USA, if you're interested in calling them and exploring your options. And of course, legal aid societies are a great resource as well. If you are faced with eviction or at risk of that, they may be able to help you, advise you on your tenant rights, help you through maybe some eviction prevention stuff. Always worth giving them a call as well. And then if you've gotten this far in the video and none of this is working or you've exhausted all of these options somehow already, contact a housing counselor, ask them what they can do. Try to negotiate with your landlord. Sometimes being really honest about what you're going through can lead to a temporary payment plan, a temporary rent reduction, some sort of relief that might help delay those eviction proceedings, especially if you're renting from an individual and not necessarily a company. Sometimes we've had success offering, rent abatement for services, saying, hey, if I help you with this thing, can you reduce the rent? My husband and I actually had that kind of agreement with our landlord in the first place that we ever lived in. So it's rare, but it does happen. It can take some persuasive arguments to make that happen, though. Now, of course, if you are only a little bit shy, you might want to check out our sponsor, Free Cash. They'll pay you for playing games, testing new apps, things like that. And they can pay you out through PayPal and different means as well. So go check the link you see on screen there for some easy ways to earn a little bit of extra money. Hopefully that can help in the short term with any of your urgent needs there. So that's all we have for you in today's video. However, if you have made it this far, I do want you to know that we are always updating our website with more resources to help you save money on your rent. So go to lowincomerelief.com/rent relief for the most updated version of this list. And we'll be back soon with more ways that you can save money and get free stuff. I'll see you there.